Shalom, this week's Sedra is Behar b'chukotai. Is idleness of value in the Torah? Can we imagine a case of being commanded to do absolutely nothing? Anything even just somewhat familiar with the Torah knows that idleness is the bane of the Torah-observant Jew, and a value the Torah and sages warned against. Yet the Talmud makes frequent mention of a group of people called the 10 Batlanim, Batlanim. A Batlan is someone who wastes their time. This group was found in any major Jewish city or town, and according to Rashi, they were 10 people paid to sit in their town to do nothing but be on call for situations that required a minyan, like let's say a funeral. It's strange to think of 10 men being paid to do just nothing. It seems inconsistent with the values of the Torah. In this week's Torah portion, we learn about the mitzvah of Shemitah, which is the prohibition of planting and cultivating our fields every 7 years. This week we read Hashem spoke to Moshe on Har Sinai and said, "Speak to the Israeli people and say to them, when you enter the land that I assign you, the land shall observe a Shabbat to God." Most Jews and even Gentiles are familiar with the concept of Shabbat, usually attributed to a day of rest. The Rishonim try to understand what a year-long rest would look like and what does it mean in this pasuk. In his commentary to the pasuk, Rashbam wrote that Shabbat is an expression of idleness. This explanation seems odd because, as we've mentioned, idleness is not a Torah value, let alone a command. How can a Torah student understand the Rashbam's explanation of this pasuk? In his commentary to this command, Rashi connected the 7th year of Shemitah to the Shabbat of each week, and he wrote, "This means a rest in honor of the Lord, not a rest for the Lord," in the same sense as these words are used in the case of the weekly Shabbat. The Sforno continued Rashi's line of thought and explained that during the whole year, instead of serving the soil, which requires cultivation, the farmer will turn his efforts to serving God directly instead. Just as the weekly Shabbat is a day set aside for intensive service of God, so the Shemitah year is to serve the same purpose. The Sforno wrote a brilliant comment about Shabbat that helps us understand the Shemitah. He wrote on the command that 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Shabbat of your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son, your daughter, your male or female slave, or your cattle, or the stranger who is within your settlements. He wrote that when God wrote 6 days you shall labor, God meant that during those days you will give attention predominantly to mundane matters, most of which involve difficult frustrations, seeing that such mundane matters concentrate on events in a world which is not ours. And when God wrote, "Do all your work," God meant the type of activities essential for earning a livelihood. And when God wrote, "But the 7th day is a Shabbat of your God," God meant that the entire day is to be devoted to spiritual matters. This involves studying Torah, teaching Torah, performing the commandments associated with the Torah, and enjoying the very nature of such a day on which, instead of serving the needs of one's survival in a hostile environment, one can concentrate on serving the Master, the provider of life and spiritual inspiration, God. The idleness the Rashbam described of Shemitah with isn't wasting time. It's an idleness from hard labor. This is the same idleness of the 10 Batlanim we started this Dvar Torah. Although Rashi made it sound like they sat and did nothing all day, Rambam wrote they didn't work but studied Torah all day long. During Shabbat and Shemittah, we are commanded to be idle from work, but not idle from the productivity that comes with Torah study, fulfilling mitzvot, and praying. What a brilliant idea, what an essential idea for us to know, both for Shemitah, which is another 5.5 years away, and for our weekly Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.